We have the latest on the two New York cops wounded in a shootout with a teenager who was on a moped in Queens. And good evening, everyone, at 5 o'clock. I'm Bill Ritter.
I'm Sandra Bookman in for Sade. The shooting in Queens comes in the midst of an apparent NYPD crackdown on criminals using scooters and mopeds to make their getaway.
Today, cheers as the two wounded cops left the hospital less than 6 hours after the shootout with a 19-year-old migrant from Venezuela.
Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett live in East Elmhurst with our lead story. NJ?
And right, Sandra, what you mentioned about that crackdown, you know, what happened here last night, overnight, was a direct result of that crackdown. The officers spotted a young man on an e-bike driving in the wrong lane, driving the wrong way. They decided to pull him over, and they found themselves in a gunfight with a 19-year-old man wanted for robbery. In the middle of 23rd Avenue, spent shell casings, a semi-automatic pistol, and an e-bike. The 19-year-old robbery suspect was taken into police custody with a bullet wound in his foot. The two officers survived. 26-year-old Christopher Abreu struck in the leg, wheeled from the emergency room barely 6 hours later by his partner, Richard Yaruso, also 26, saved from a bullet wound in his abdomen by his body armor.
Our officers responded with a level of discipline, a level of focus, a level of professionalism. And today we thank God.
It happened at 1:40 this morning in East Elmhurst. The officers were wounded after chasing down the suspect. After he ditched the bike and took off on foot, investigators say he turned and fired on them.
The officers began a foot pursuit which led for several blocks. During the pursuit, the suspect fired multiple rounds at our officers, who then returned fire.
Police officials said the suspect's last known address was a nearby motel, serving as a shelter for migrants. Identified as 19-year-old Bernardo Raul Castro Mata, a recent immigrant from Venezuela. Few seemed to know him, telling reporters that he had not lived there in several weeks.
Similar scooters and bikes are being used citywide to commit crimes. These crimes include shootings, robberies, and phone snatches.
In fact, NYPD detectives believe Castro Mata is the young man in blue, pictured here with two other suspects, wanted for stealing purses from women in Queens a month ago.
We have over 80 robbery patterns citywide involving incidents where the perpetrators are riding motorized scooters or motorcycles. That's over 80 robbery patterns alone, encompassing over hundreds and hundreds of incidents.
And those numbers are staggering. Robberies by thieves on motorcycles and e-bikes are up 400% over last year. As for the suspect in this case, I'm told he remains hospitalized. Charges against him have yet to be announced.
At 10, a fallen Arizona police officer arriving to his final resting place tonight. Gila River police officer Joshua Breeze killed in the line of duty on Saturday. Another officer, as well as 3 others injured, and 1 community member also killed. New tonight, we're learning more about that 23-year-old victim. ABC 15 has been following the story since the weekend, and we continue digging into this investigation.
ABC 15's Josh Cristianto is picking up our coverage with emotional moments from tonight.
Standing by for the fallen. Hundreds of police and first responders from all over the valley showing what it means to remember one of their own. With an American flag draped overhead, Gila River police officer Joshua Breeze started his journey from Central Phoenix all the way to Chandler to the Valley of the Sun Mortuary and Cemetery. There, community members gathered to pay their respects.
I think the community needs to know that our police officers are important and their lives are as important as any life there is.
As Breeze's body arrived, families, the young and old, gathered round to see their community's hero. Surrounded by his brothers and sisters in blue, the loss still fresh in their mind. We captured the moments Breeze was carried into the mortuary by his fellow officers, while others rendered their military salute. Gila River Police Chief Jesse Crabtree speaking out for the first time to reporters since the tragic shooting.
He was a good, awesome guy. I got to meet him as we're doing the background, as he applied for us, as he was going through the academy. I've got opportunities to talk to him off and on during that time. So excellent guy.
The chief telling us Breeze just graduated from the police academy and was weeks away from finishing the field training program and going solo. They never expected this to happen.
When it happens in your apartment, it's a shot in the guts. Brought us to our knees.
And tonight, we're learning more about the community member killed in the shooting, identified as 23-year-old Allison Apcaw. Gila River Indian Community Governor Stephen Rowe Lewis speaking with a family and saying, "They told me how much Allison loved her family and how much they want unity, positivity, and peace to come from this tragedy. She was a beloved daughter and sister, a loyal friend and coworker, fast to laugh, hardworking, joyous, and supportive."
You don't want to see anybody go down, but just the fact that it was so close to home.
A community coming to grips with a loss that's hitting home. Josh Cristianto, ABC 15, Arizona.
Josh, thank you. As for the investigation into the shooting itself, there are still so many questions about what led to the gunfire. Video obtained by ABC 15 of that night appears to just show a chaotic scene. The video also showing what appears to be an officer firing shots. We're told 2 people are in custody, but we're still trying to find out who those people are. A former assistant U.S. attorney tells our Eleni Dow that crimes that happen on reservations are handled differently compared to the ones that happen in cities.
There's the federal overlay, but they, have a lot of self-determination, and they have their own sets of laws and their own courts that have jurisdiction over a lot of crimes as well.
So now that this case is in federal hands, the FBI says the Department of Justice guidelines don't allow for updates into the investigation. If and when charges are filed, then it'll all become public.
First, Light Horse police shoot and kill a man after he shot an officer during a standoff at a Tulsa apartment complex. Thanks for joining us. I'm Craig Day.
And I'm Lori Fulbright. Police say that officer was hit in the shoulder, protected by his bulletproof vest. Other officers then returned fire and killed the man. This started as a domestic violence call after they say that man beat up a woman and her 2-year-old child. News on 6's Reagan Ledbetter is live with details about exactly what happened. Reagan.
Craig and Lori, Light Horse police say they were trying to de-escalate the situation and get the man to surrender. After hours of commands, an officer climbed up on a ladder in order to put a drone inside the apartment. But when he did, the man pointed a gun at the officer and fired.
Just as my son was standing in the door, we heard gunshots.
Several people at the Somerset Park Apartments heard yelling and gunshots after a nearly 4-hour standoff.
We don't want the outcome that we got today, but sometimes that's out of our hands, especially when officers' lives are directly threatened and directly in danger right in front of them.
Police say it started as a domestic call of the man assaulting a woman and a child, and the 2 victims escaped and ran for help. Police say neighbors tried to help them, but the man pointed a gun at them as well, then ran back into the apartment and barricaded himself inside. Since the man and victims are tribal, Light Horse were called in and brought their SWAT team. After hours of giving commands and trying to call the man to get him to give up, officers plan to put a drone inside the apartment.
Light Horse SWAT team and TAC team has drone capabilities, drone to go in, map out the area, see what they're dealing with, talk to the suspect that's barricaded. This is to keep officers and the suspect as safe as possible.
Police say as the officer was trying to break the window, the man pointed a gun at the officer through the window and fired. That officer was hit and another officer fell off the ladder.
We were trying to de-escalate. That took it to an entire another level where now we have no choice but to protect the life of this officer that's directly in front of this person coming at them with the weapon drawn.
Now, police have not released the name of the man at this time. Both officers who were injured, as well as the woman and child, they're all expected to be okay. Now, all officers who fired shots are on routine paid leave, and the FBI is now investigating. Live in Tulsa, Reagan Ledbetter, Oklahoma's Own, News on 6.
Thanks for joining us. Tonight, flags are flying at half-staff in honor of Minneapolis police officer Jamal Mitchell, who was shot and killed while responding to an emergency. All day, we've been gathering new information about what happened last night and learning more about Officer Mitchell. And just within the last half hour, we learned the name of another person who died in that shooting. We begin our live team coverage with Lauren Lemanchek, who's outside Minneapolis 5th Precinct tonight. Lauren?
Yeah, Randy, as you said, within the last half hour, we got some new information from the medical examiner. First, confirming that Officer Jamal Mitchell died of multiple gunshot wounds. And second, identifying the other man who was shot inside that apartment building as Osman Saeed Jamal. Tonight, though, as you can see behind me at the 5th District, the memorial is growing here as people are trying to cope with the tragedy.
There are not words to appropriately describe this tragedy because they just don't exist.
A heartbroken department, an angry police chief after a shootout that left one of their own dead in an attack Chief O'Hara described as an assassination.
On a report of a shooting in the 532, also responding.
The call came in Thursday evening for 2 people shot. Officer Jamal Mitchell was one of the first to respond.
Look, we have 2 victims outside.
Officers found 2 people outside. Mitchell was helping one of them when BCA investigators say that man pulled a gun and shot him.
Yeah, I'm using the term for a reason. I've seen the video, and he was ambushed at the time by this individual that was there.
O'Hara saying he kept firing even after Mitchell was hit.
And we're getting shot at here, 22nd and Blaisdell, actively shooting.
2 Minneapolis police officers returned fire. One was shot.
There were multiple shots fired, multiple shots fired. Top down, there's a top down.
The BCA tonight confirms 3 people died. Officer Mitchell, the suspect, and a victim inside the apartment from the original 911 call. 4 were wounded, the second officer, a firefighter, a bystander, and another man inside the apartment. Today at 22nd and Blaisdell, a memorial to Officer Mitchell and BCA investigators combing the neighborhood, trying to piece together answers to a shootout that has rocked the city and left an officer dead.
I'm angry and deeply hurt by the senseless and just violent attack on one of Minneapolis's finest. It's become too easy to attack our police, and it needs to stop.
Well, the firefighter and the police officer who were injured have both been treated and are expected to be okay. Now, the other 2 people were gravely injured, we're told, but they both remain in the hospital tonight. Now, there's still much we do not know, including much about the suspect. Authorities still have not released his name.